Much better?
Much better.
What? Okay.
Do you want to stand?
Is there one?
Yeah, I've got one.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome, everybody. On behalf of Fresh Start, it's an honor to have Rabbi Russell. Thank you, Mrs. Goldstein, for arranging it. Thank you, Public Board, for being behind it and bringing in Rabbi Russell to Detroit to enjoy. So I think the way we're going to do it is Mrs. Goldstein sent me a list of questions, Rabbi Russell. We're going to start with those. And I'm sure we'll bring up a few more. We do have sort of a hard stop at about 12:45. Give us time, so we'll take a little over an hour. So with your permission, I will start with the first question. Okay, how do we avoid a power struggle with children who refuse to listen? If I ignore the no, it seems to undermine me in the classroom. If I try wheeling and dealing, it takes up precious class time, and I have lost other students.
Like,
82 hours?
yeah, this is like, okay, this is a workshop. This is not a... Look, I'm assuming, can I reframe the question and what are we doing here? Can I address what we're doing? What are we doing here? You're in the chinuch, all of you. What are you doing? Right? You're teaching kids. Yes? What is the true job of teaching? What do we actually are? Are we after? This is going to sound radical, but look, can I just say this much? That I'll be much more comfortable. I didn't come here. I don't go to talk to the fountain to say what you know already. Is that okay? So I say things that are different. Is that okay?
That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
You understand it? No, good. Okay. Sometimes they have such a hard time with this because it's disrespectful to you, but I just want to like broaden your minds because to answer specific questions again, do this. There's one kid in your class it might apply to, but it won't apply to someone else. You understand? You have a range of children that you're teaching, so any answer that could work for one will absolutely for sure not work for someone else. So it's kind of silly. You with me on that? Is that right? You have a job that's humanly impossible to begin with. You know, I'll give you a much what I mean by that. The Sheikh Levi, Shmuel Levi the Bosnians, they decided Kodesh V'Bracha, Isaac Hador. He was quoted in a sefer by Rav Kessler. Rav Kessler, right? You understand? He said that one of the ikar challenges of chinuch today, teaching, is that an arbitrary calendar date defined the ability of a child to learn. So we have a date, a cutoff date, and so therefore you're in this class, in this grade, and therefore you should be able to learn in a certain way. Well, it's simply not true. Every teacher knows that. You have a huge range where you have some kids who, their maturity, their emotional maturity level isn't there. They're just not there. And others who are way above. So you've got the kids who are bored if you dumb it down too much. And if you take it up too much, you lose most of the class anyway. Because the range is so great. Basically, the job's impossible. Okay, so this is like, can we just like, chill and understand this? So I've been thinking about this for 25 years. If this is the case, if Kessler, was clear about it, he said, the old days, he said, before the war, it was normal, the Rav of the Stadt, or the Gvir hired the Malamed to teach kids, and they typically 4, 5, 6, 7-year-olds learned together. 10, 11, 12-year-olds learned together, because you learned on the level you were on. It wasn't to do with an age, it wasn't to do with an age. He even went further and said, well, where was ADD, back then? And he said there wasn't, because when they were bored, they were able to just get up, walk out into the chutzah, play with the chickens and the goats and the sheep, and then go home and help their mother with the laundry. And when they got out of the system, they came back to class and no one cared. He said the whole system of the classroom and the times and thing and the range all makes it impossible. So let's just acknowledge you got an impossible job. You're wonderful people with an impossible job. Okay, to reach all children. So the question really is like this: if you aim at the sort of middle of your class, which is the wisest move, and the Yisrael seem to believe that's the right place, not to aim at the top best kids in the class. You go in the middle, and so the shoulders you get most of the kids, are connected and attached. But you have the ones who are very bright aboard, and the ones at the bottom, so to speak. When I say bottom, I mean the ones least capable of understanding and absorbing and processing, and the most distracted are disconnected. How do we help them? They're the ones. What was the question when they say no? They're the ones, correct? It's only from that group they say no. So I want to give a marshal, a musar, a concept, and share it with you within the gather of Ten L'Chacham Yisachamay. Just so you understand a concept, a musar, yes? So what do you teach? Give me an example of what you teach. Classes, what kind of subjects? What do you teach?
Reading, math,
Reading,
science.
this is all secular,
Gen-
we're doing secular side. Fine. So the fact that you're a frum person, especially teaching secular studies, you still represent Yadis. Did you know that? Most deeply and profoundly. And even if you teach a secular subject, but if those kids in the, can I say, the bottom quarter of the class, that 25%, if they're upset with you and how you handle them, that directly affects their Yiddishkeit. Did you know that? Do you know that? Even though you're teaching secular studies? No, it's just unfortunately the facts. It directly, you're laughing. Am I wrong? You understand, right? It's 1,000% right, because you're a frum person who's teaching them, your relationship with them. It doesn't matter what you're teaching them. It's completely irrelevant. You are a frum, Tayyadika person. You're the other Richter from the Rabbi Shimon. In the kid's eyes, you represent him. It doesn't matter that you're teaching secular. It's totally irrelevant. Because you're a frum person. And your anhaga towards the child is directly connected to their future life in Yiddishkeit. Even in secular studies, it's passionate. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you why, just so you understand. I will answer this question, you'll see, I'm just going to meander first to get there. Obviously, many of you know, I'm a therapist, and working with the Olam HaTorah for 35 years. So I meet a lot of people who are just barely hanging in there. They're from, but just barely. But they're still, they're in, but they're hurting really bad. They come for therapy and process and to work out their lives. In this process, I ask them, I always do, and I've done this for 30 years, and it's always the same answer, and I find it so amazing and incredible, and I exploit the answer. The question I ask them is, I see that you've stuck in there, you've hung in there, you're still from. You're hurting and you're frustrated and you've got problems and issues and religious trauma, and spiritual trauma, learning trauma, you got the whole thing. But you're still there. So tell me something. Was there one teacher or Rebbe who made a difference to your life and is the reason you're from today? I promise you, every single person lights up. Oh yes, oh my gosh, yes. And I say, who is that? And they tell me about their 4th grade English studies math teacher. Or they tell me about their 7th grade Rebbe. It doesn't matter, they all have one. And by the way, many of them have their secular studies teacher. Many of them is the reason they're from today. I promise you they say this. So I say, tell me about it. They tell me how, oh my gosh, I was so obnoxious, you can't imagine. That teacher, I drove her crazy. I drove him mad. I just never listened. I said no. I didn't cooperate. I didn't do homework. I told him their class is stinky and stupid. I did everything. I remember very well. And you know something? I said, and you're from because of that? He said, yeah. Why? They say to me the same thing. Because she or he never got upset with me. I deserve to be kicked out. I deserve to be, I have, by the way, letters. I don't have them with me, it's chaval, but I have letters written to me by young adults where they pour this out in like a 3 or 4 page letter to me. How that teacher is the reason I'm from and alive today is because of her or because of him. I promise you they all said. What's fascinating is I say to them then, So, do you mind if I ask you a question? Don't get freaked out, like, learning trauma. I said, do you remember anything they taught you? I promise you, no. Not one of them remembers one thing you ever taught them. So I said, isn't that incredible? That this person is the reason you're from, and you don't remember one thing they ever taught you. Can we all let that, drink that in for a moment? Like, let that sit. Because what that tells us is the Masoros HaTorah of children staying from. And you're a frum institution, right? This is like a Jewish frum school. It's not a Catholic school, right? This is like frum, right? And ideally, they hire you because they want to keep the kids from, correct? And we hope that we inspire them to be from. Isn't that our goal, our Torah? Well, did you realize or ever think about it, that that's more important to Torah than anything you ever teach them? Now, I'm not saying that what you're teaching them is irrelevant. Of course it's relevant. And they need skills and knowledge for life to function in the world. They have to learn math and English and history and geography and whatever they're learning. Of course, it develops a human being to be connected to the world so they can navigate the world and live in the world and know how to function in the world, of course. But did it ever occur to you as a group that that teaching is less important than the act of connecting to the kids? I must say I'm having a very good experience here this morning because so many of you are nodding. I will tell you that when I meet with the men, it's not the same. I'll tell you this fascinating story. I was at Torah Masoret. Last time I spoke ever, I used to speak for Torah Masoret all the years. When I made Aliyah 10 years ago, but I used to speak for them all the years. The last time I spoke, I actually said, I think this is the last time you're going to invite me, and it was. And it was. It was. But maybe because I made Aliyah, it's too expensive, I don't know. But at the Maisa, I didn't speak to him again yet. But I was on a panel, and the panel was about bullying. Bullying. What do you do with bullying? And I was on a panel with two big Rosh Yeshivas, and they both spoke about the yeshiva systems. They have zero tolerance. They don't allow it. Yeah, right. It's like, please. Emotional bullying, psychological bullying. I mean, my gosh, it goes on in every place. It's horrible. It's hurtful. It's destructive. It's traumatic. And then they just denied the whole thing. We don't have zero tolerance. Yeah. I was so frustrated. I jumped up. And the room was full of like 1,000 rebbeim. It was actually rebbeim. About 1,000 rebbeim. The front row, 3 rows were the old school elders of the yeshiva world, and the back was all the young people. And I said this following question: what do you think is more important for Masoros HaTorah, teaching Bava Kama in the classroom, or teaching Midas in the playground? There was utter silence in the room, you can imagine. And then I said, I have no sophic on earth, and I can prove it to you, that teaching Midas in the playground is more important than teaching Bava Kama in the classroom. When I said it, all the back rows jumped up and started cheering and clapping. All the young rebbeim. It was incredible. The front rows were not happy with me. We're not happy. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't teach Bava Kama. Of course we should. But if there's a priority, what's more important? What you're teaching or your relationship with the children? It turns out that your relationship with the children is way far more important than actually what you teach. Which means like this: you never compromise your relationship for teaching material. Is that okay? Can you let that sink in? Really good? Your relationship is ultimately more meaningful and important to the entire life of a child, their journey in this world, than any information you ever teach them. So why on earth would you ever compromise your relationship for material? Doesn't make any sense. So when a kid says no, I'm going to come back in now. That's sort of the background. You have to, in your head, reframe the moment. That this is a moment where you're going to keep this kid from for the rest of their life because of how you're going to hurt them. The way you interact with them now could actually turn this child into your Talmud for life, your student for life, where they remember this moment as the moment that really sustains them and keeps them from it. Which means like this. The kid says, no, I'll give you now, having this as a background, I want to give you a mosh. It's just a mosh. A musik, a concept. You're teaching, do you teach like multiple subjects? Or do you go in and teach only English, only math? Okay, so can I take the example of where you're teaching multiple subjects to the kids, and you have to have this experience of saying, put away your English books, take out your math. Right, is that a reasonable thing to work with? Okay. And you do that, and one of the kids says no, or doesn't move. They don't do anything. They just sit there looking at you, or looking at the wall or the ceiling. So typically what happens is you notice and you remind them, hopefully gently and kindly. You say to the child, you teach, you're teaching boys English studies, so you say Yankel. Let's say Yankel. You know, Miriam, I don't know, let's take Miriam. Is that okay? Should we take Miriam? You say, Miriam, take, it's a boys. Okay, so you take Yankel, take out your math book. And the uncle looks at you and he goes like this. And you say, should we do old school chinuch first? Yankel! Take out your math book! Now everyone's watching and staring at Yankel, and the showdown has happened. This is the moment where you feel like your career is over if you lose this. You know that moment? Take out your math book. I expect you to take out your math book. Take out your math book. Sorry, don't make me uncomfortable. And the uncle goes, now what?
You don't take out your math book.
You don't take out your math book. But let me tell you, and this is a true story. When I first started doing this work 35 years ago, I volunteered my services free to the Lakewood Cheder. The hallway outside was the Capitol building, they call it. That's where the Cheder was in those days. Some of you remember it. In the hallway, there was sheetrock opposite the door, and there was an imprint in the sheetrock of hands where they were thrown out so hard from the classroom that the sheetrock got indented from the kids stopping themselves as they were expelled from the classroom because they went like this twice. I promise it's the truth. They used to call it the Lakewood Cheder Zoo. They used to call it. They got rid of the problem because they put tiles on the wall, so you didn't have to notice the indentations anymore. So yeah, in old school, you throw them out because the man year of Ishmael, you got to know, kid has to learn. Like this, you got to listen to your rabbi, your teacher. What happens to that kid? Of course, he goes off the dirt. You know, he's traumatized. What does the new world chinuch look like? So I'm giving you a marshal, just to understand. And then we can maybe tease out the marshal and think of application, and you'll give me all your kashas, because maybe it's best just to save this question, because this cuts at the essence of the whole thing. And when I finish here, I'm stalling. When I tell you the marshal, you're all going to feel internally a kasha why that's ridiculous and stupid. Okay, and I'd like you to express that if you want to me, so we can process it through. I've done this with so many schools, I know it's coming. I know how you're going to feel. But here's what you do. You say to them, put away your English book, take out your math book. Yanko gives you the shoulder twice. You raise your voice a little bit, just to make sure you heard. Yanko, your math book, take it out. Gives you the shoulder. What you're meant to do next, because we just talked about prioritizing your relationship and your concern for the emotional the emotional, psychological, emotional, social well-being of this child is more important than learning math at this moment, correct? At this moment is more important. So you walk over to your uncle and you very gently and quietly whisper to him, it's fine. Don't take out your math book. It's all good. We all love you. It's all fine. And you go back and teach. Yeah. Yeah, that's it, yeah? And ignore it. If you do this well, with warmth, what do you think happens in the next 60 seconds? Well, it takes out the math book, which is really remarkable. And what do you do at recess? We're getting there, we're good. What do you do at recess, next recess? When they come out of the class, you call your uncle over and you say, wow, that was amazing. There we go. We're good now? We're good? Okay. So what do? In the recess, you call your uncle over and you compliment him and you say, that was amazing. So proud of you. Good for you. And everything goes fine. And he goes out and he goes good. And he thinks you're amazing. And you're starting to build a tolerance for life. But it gets better. It gets better if he doesn't take out his math book. This is a better moment for his future development. Because when it comes to recess, you call him over and you say to him, uncle, that was extraordinary. It was amazing. You were able to sit there. What gevura you have. That you could sit there and not take out your math book. Good for you. That was incredible. What do you think is happening in this child's neshama at that very moment when you do that with a warm smile? Seriously, what do you think is happening to him? He feels like valued, seen, and you're a firm person. You're a teacher. And he feels that you understood that for whatever reason, we don't even know yet. It's okay, we're going to find out, but not yet. But he feels understood, validated, tuned into, where you prioritized his emotional social development and your relationship with him over math. Sounds like a pretty good deal to me. So tomorrow you come to school and you're teaching, and you say to the kids, put away your English, take out your math book, and your uncle goes, and you remind him, you know, it's math now. And you walk over to him and say, it's fine. If you don't like math, don't learn it. Hashem loves you. It's all good. That's what you say, those exact words. Hashem loves you. It's all good. And you go back and teach math. Now, let's assume the worst. He does not take out his math book. The magic didn't happen is a better moment for you. Like I said, because when you call him over, you say to him, that was amazing, gevura. Wow. That was incredible. And then you say to him, what's going on? What's happening? What's happening in your life? Do you have a struggle with math? Is it life? Well, what's going on? And guess what? Because 2 times you tuned into him and said, don't worry about it, it's all good, Hashem loves you. You say those words, exact words. He feels you care about him. And when you ask him what's going on, he tells you. He opens up to you. Because you connected with him. And you just saved a Jewish life. Are you following me on this? What's more important, do you understand, than the chayma, is the relationship. My mother, Elel Shalom, was a teacher for 40 years. She was an incredible lady. She was off the charts, I think, a special woman. She was just amazing. She gave me the 4 S's of attachment. She gave me everything. She was just an extraordinary lady. And brilliant, too. She was absolutely brilliant. And at 83, she bought herself the entire Ma'am Lawyers in English. at 83, and she learned the whole thing every Shabbos. She knew it. She came to the table. She knew the whole man was. She was an extraordinary person. So I had a brother, Shom, who worked in the education department in London where we lived. And one time he sneakily wanted to see her review, like what was her review. Turned out she was the #2 teacher where we lived in London. She was ranked #2. Pretty extraordinary, right? So of course I went to her after I found this out, and I said to her, Mommy, like, what do you think made you such an amazing teacher? And like this, without a hesitation, she said to me this, that every day when I walked into the classroom, I wanted to present myself as a person every child would want to be. They would want to be me, because they love me so much. So once they had that connection with me as a person, so the information flowed. That was easy. And it turns out that with the struggling kids in the classroom, when you prioritize your relationship with the struggling kids over the chaimer, they eventually come to the material. Or they come to it later, when they're ready, when it works for them. And maybe they won't learn so much, but they'll be connected to you, and their life is completely different. Is that making sense? When a kid, here's a concept. This is a concept we use, by the way, for in the off the derech world, that I believe applies in this world too. The concept in the off the derech world, when we're trying to help connect with teenagers, the concept is try to define me more than I can love you. Try to do that, because you're going to fail. You will discover that whatever level of defiance you have for me, my capacity to love you is greater. That's how kids heal, by the way. So in the same way, we exploit that in the classroom. And you can have structure, rules, and discipline at the same time. Because when you stop fighting to force them to do it in the short run, you give them reshus, so to speak. If you're not into it, don't do it. It's fine. It's fine. We're okay today. But then you've created the potential whereby you can now talk to them, whether in recess or tomorrow. You can now connect with them if it continues, and they're interested in talking to you, because what they're experiencing, I just hope you understand, this makes sense. If this doesn't, tell me. What they're experiencing is that I care about why you're not in the mood of learning math today. What's going on inside you is more valuable to me than whether or not you do the math problem. The real problem is why you don't want to do it. And for that, I want to connect with you. I want to help you. I'm looking at the bigger picture of your life. I'm not worried about a syllabus or doing it. And the way you do that without having all the class, the whole merida, where they're all going to say we're not learning now, is you quietly whisper into the ear of the child. You let them know it's okay with me. And Hashem loves you. Don't worry about it. It's all good. And then you follow up in recess immediately with a conversation with them, where you talk to them about it. What's going on? Without anger or frustration. In the new world of chinuch, let me tell you like this. In the old, is this okay? I'm just going on. Yeah, no, seriously, do you want to go to other questions?
I have a question.
You have a question on this?
Yeah.
Great, so
Yeah.
let's do that.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
I'm just curious when it happens when the child is, we're back to that of not doing the work, right?
Right.
But when it becomes more of like affecting the entire classroom. So like you'll have another child, let's say they're like eye to eye with each other and they're like together not doing the work. Or like it becomes more of like a global problem.
Yep.
And it's affecting other children where it's like, yeah, I could work with just this one child one-on-one and exactly like that, connect with the child and work with the child. But at this point in the classroom, this child is now, I don't want to use the word derailing the classroom, but more of like, it's a more global issue where like, we have 18 students that need to learn and this one kid is.
Yeah, so the one kid, you'll discover, if you try this, you'll discover that the one kid doesn't want to derail you, when you've approached the kid immediately with kindness and told them, just, it's fine if you don't learn right now. That's okay. See, the reason the kids, there are 4 reasons that kids don't do well in class. I don't know if you're familiar with this. But the first is avoidance of failure. They feel stupid and they want to avoid failing, so they don't do it. Attention is the next one. Power and then revenge. These are the 4 reasons the kids like struggle in the classroom. When you connect with them immediately, when you change the culture of the classroom where the kids feel, I care about you, and I understand right now you're not interested, and that's okay. Just sit quietly, it's fine. I'm really good with that. Now, it doesn't work if you're looking upset. And it's the second piece I was about to get to. It doesn't work. It doesn't work if the child feels you're mad with them. I'm really frustrated with you. Because then you evoke, whether it's attention, power, revenge, you evoke other reasons inside them, and they will continue to derail you. Whereas if you immediately enter in and tell the kid right away, it's okay, just sit quietly, it's fine. What starts happening is the kids, them want to participate, want to be connected to you, and they want the help. Now, in the case where, and it's a rare case, that we have to change the system for shutting down kids, forcing them to comply, because all we gain is the short run, we don't gain in the long run, because then they're not being helped, they're not being attended to. So we have to, after class, talk to them about what's going on inside them. You can't do that if you've already got this relationship with them when they see you as upset and angry with them. So whatever you do at the moment has to be done in a warm way, with a smile, where they really feel, I'm just not mad with you. I understand you don't want to do this math right now, and that's fine. It's totally fine with me, just please try not to disturb. Do you understand? We have to prioritize the connection. If you're telling me they've already gone to a place where they're standing on the desk and encouraging other kids to stand on the desk, well, the kid can't stay in the class. That's obvious.
But what happens when a child can't stay in a class?
Okay, so
Yeah.
here, look, this is a different subject. We're going to change, okay? Is that okay? Okay. So long ago, I don't know if your principal will agree with this. Is there Mahelis here? Lovely. You both? You've got to sit both of you?
Really, she's the one who arranged the meeting.
Oh,
This
thank
meeting,
you.
so she doesn't agree.
So did you ever hear talk about the yellow, orange, and red cards?
We do have some kids that work with the rules of regulation.
Do you have a standard in the school, yellow, orange, and red? So let me just explain what it is, and then you tell me if it would work for you. Because I've done this in so many schools, and it worked well. At elementary school, I wouldn't do it in high school, but in elementary school, it works well. You have, bear with me when I tell you this. Have you heard me speak about this? Because I do talk about this quite often, because it works. So you have it works when it's the culture of the school. You explain to the kids, this is how it works. We have yellow, orange, and red cards. The yellow card says on it, I, your teacher, in your case, understand you're having a hard day. The focus is not on you're behaving wrong. It's not about the behavior. The focus is, I understand you're having a hard day. And when a kid starts beginning in the early stages, the rumbling stages, you drop it on their desk, I understand you're having a hard day. Now let's assume the kids do not settle down after you drop that card on their desk. So then you drop an orange card on their desk that says, I, your teacher, understand you're having in bold, very hard day. And you drop that on their desk. Quietly as you're teaching, you walk around the class, you discreetly drop it on their desk. And most kids will settle down at that point. The doggish is on, you're having a hard day, not on the behavior. Very important. The third card, the red card, if you really need it because they can't stay in the classroom, is, I, your teacher, understand you're having such a hard day. Please go to, what do they call it, Nahelis?
Mrs. Goldstein.
Mrs. Goldstein. Please go to Mrs. Goldstein. And bear with me, don't erupt till I finish this, please. Please go to Mrs. Goldstein, get a Danish and a soda, and discuss with Mrs. Goldstein why you're having such a hard day. Still not the focus on the behavior. It's on the internal experience of having a hard day. When I first suggested this some 20 years ago, I had schools all over the place doing it, including beautiful Hasidic schools. They were writing in Yiddish. It was going, they sent me cards. And they found it changed the culture of the school. When I said this on a podcast about 5 years ago, I said this publicly on a podcast, I think on the Coach Menachem show. I had thousands of people, teachers and rebbeim from all over, thought it was going this, and I had letters from people who had been doing it and found that it worked. I got one criticism. One. A lady wrote to me a very, very, very angry email where she said, do I not realize how many eating disorders there are in class? And here I'm suggesting a Danish disorder. She thought I should say carrot sticks. Not the point. This is the whole point. What happens in the school when you do a culture, we change the culture to where we're interested in what's going on with you, what's hurting you, what's stopping you from complying, from being able to do the work. Instead, and so the kid doesn't have to stay in the class. They got a red card. They know they have to go to Mrs. Goldstein. But when they walk into Mrs. Goldstein, they're not coming in being attacked and blamed for the behavior. They're coming in to be talked to about what's hurting you, what's going on inside you, what's troubling you, what's the problem. It's a game changer. Yes, go ahead.
Do you have students on purpose wanting to get
Yes,
back
everyone
together?
said that
You know,
would
I'm
happen.
hungry today.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't mind getting a
exactly.
Danish and so
You know,
on.
what happens is that, yes, I'll go and get the thing, but then I go to talk to Mrs. Goldstein about what's going on in my life. They don't do it. And it turned out I was right. I guess they wouldn't, because they know they've got to go and talk over what's the problems. And you know what? If they come into Mrs. Goldstein and they really have something, and they go and talk over their problem, I think that's good, not bad. That'll be a wonderful, maybe you'll hire someone just for that job, to be sitting there talking to them. Because all the kids who are struggling are not struggling because they have bad middas. Are we okay with that? They're struggling because they're hurting inside. I went to Gedonis, I went to Rabbi Leib many, many years ago. I asked them this interesting question. I said, if you have two kids, they don't get up in the morning to school. One is lazy, and one has an anxiety disorder. They can't get out of bed. How do I know which is which? So Rosh Yeshiva said to me, so what difference, basically? And I said, it's huge. Because if he's got an anxiety disorder, he needs tipul refu'i, and you have to mirap, he needs help. Mental health treatment, he needs help. And if he's lazy, he needs musa. So I need to know which one it is. So Shiva said to me, he thought for a minute, and he said, we'll do both. And I said, chas v'shalom. Chas v'shalom. If you do tipul refu'i, mental health treatment on someone who's lazy, nothing happens. But if you do musa on someone who's got a disorder, you're a mazik. You're a mazik. So he laughed, he heard it. By the way, this was in the early days, where you could easily walk in. When he first took over, he was available. It was like easy. You just walk in and talk to him. So he thought for a minute, and then he told me something amazing. He said, in this day and age, this is based on his experience as a mechanech. He had a yeshiva. He was a mechanech. He said, in this day and age, you should always assume there's something bothering them inside. There's some emotional problem bothering them. It's not midas ros. He said, if you and your colleagues all treat them, and you've worked on it, and you've all come to a conclusion that there's nothing to treat, it's actually midas ros, then you can consider musa. That's what he told me. Otherwise, go treat them first. So what does treat them mean when it's on the school-based issue? It means connect with them. That's what treatment for the school-based perspective, it means connect. It means show an interest in what's bothering you. So if we can get them, do you understand, to orient not towards the behavior they know what they did was wrong. That's not the issue. The real issue is what's bothering you. So by the red card, it says, I, your teacher, understand you're having a very, very hard day. Please go and get the Danish and the soda and talk over what's bothering you. It becomes a game changer. Because now they're walking in to get help. They're walking in to get help. So, yeah, let me take, go ahead.
Is there a chinuch in the size of class? Meaning, if I have 5 kids in front of me, like my children in front of me, I have the patience and the time and the ability to say, hey, what's going on? I mean, what's going on? So if I've got a class of 20, 30, you know, depending on how far it goes, you don't have that opportunity to just breadth to be able to slow things down. So it seems to me, I think practically on my classroom right now, I need to have a certain amount of discipline in order
Yes,
to
you
be
do.
able to.
That's right. And you do the normal things to have normal discipline, and most of the kids, I'm sure in every single class, the vast majority of the kids will respond to normal discipline. They do. So whatever the Rebbe teacher, whatever you've been taught to do, the vast majority will respond to that just fine. I think the conversation here was, what do we do with the kid who doesn't
So if
respond
you've
to
got
that?
30 kids, 5 of them are going to need that extra people.
Every day and every session, not necessarily, but once you start doing it, and they start going to whether to Mrs. Goldson or your intervention was good enough, what we start dealing with is the real issue. Otherwise, it's a never-ending problem. You're trying literally to put a finger in the dike because we're not actually healing what's going on inside them. So it's really the same kids disrupting day after day,
Are we
week after
really,
week.
are we really feeling them? When
Yes.
the problems are still at home, are still going on? Is
So
that-
that's what we begin to do. So what happens is we begin to connect with the children who really need it, those 5. You know, and obviously, if you have one day where it's all 5 together, that's going to be pretty challenging. But usually it's one at a time. And if you're moving quickly, the way I'm suggesting, and then we attend to their whatever's going on inside, and then they come in, and then you talk to them, and then we can find out and get them the help they need. Do you understand? That's what we're really after. Otherwise, there's in the old world, someone came over to me, it was actually this morning, I was at another place, another school, there was a senior elder Rebbe there. And I looked at him, and it was fascinating his response. I said to him, you know, in the old days, when we were kids, we got hit, we got beaten, we got caned. Oh my gosh, I got caned in front of the class. Yeah, absolutely. The things that happened to us when we were kids, you go to jail today if you do that to kids. You go to jail. The world of kids changed. So the question was, what were they like once upon a time? Were they more resilient? The answer is no. They just were able to bury their feelings better. And this Rebbe came over to me this morning and said, you're 100% correct. I don't think that they were resilient. I think they were hurting, and we're all hurting. We just buried it better. Today's kids don't bury it. Today's kids are extraordinarily sensitive. Have you noticed? Extraordinarily sensitive. It's like crazy. So the world has changed. If we don't understand and move into what the world has changed, and we use methodologies that worked, and again, I am super if they worked 30, 40 years ago. The doggish that changes is realizing that while we're teaching a curriculum and information is so important for them to develop and learn and have knowledge and awareness of life and skills to live life, the more important skill is the connection with us. That actually is the most important ingredient in their school career that will nourish them through the rest of their lives. So we never want to compromise that. So what we're looking for is techniques and skills to be able to both have the discipline in your classroom while at the same time attending to the connection. I'll tell you something interesting. Oh, you want to ask a question? Yeah, no, I just want to mention, I went into a school, doesn't matter where, what and why, but they had hired me they had a lot of, their 5 kids in the 30 kids was 10 kids amongst them. It was really a riot. It was, the nature of their school was that probably a third of the class didn't belong in that classroom. And they didn't have the money to split them and do anything. It was a real crisis. So I came in there, and again, I don't give classroom technique. That's not my thing. That's not what I'm about. I'm about understanding kids and how to connect with kids and how to stay connected with kids while at the same time maintaining your classroom discipline. So what are the techniques for doing that? So it turns out that facial expression, body language, and tone of voice is the key. In the old world of chinuch, we showed an angry face, we withdrew love, show an angry face, right? And then the kid settled down. The new world of chinuch, you do that to a kid, they'll do it right back to you. It's like crazy. So it doesn't work. So we do the opposite in this world of chinuch, is we withdraw the angry face and we show them a kind face, a loving face, while at the same time telling them whether you need to take out your math book or you need to go and speak to Mrs. Goldstein about here's a red card, get yourself a Danish and go and talk about it. Whatever we're doing, the key ingredient is not to use mirces, frightening the kids and scaring them into compliance anymore. While at the same time we do structure, rules, and discipline. We do it all. The same thing is, it's almost like do you get detentions? Ever happen? It does? Okay. So imagine the difference in old school chinuch. You give a detention, what is your facial expression towards the child and your tone of voice when you give a detention? Old school chinuch. Angry, harsh, upset with you. You got detention. You should know. My year of Ishmael. Going to do that again? You're smiling and I'm so grateful. No, but that's the old school chinuch, right? That is that whole stuff. What I've been teaching around the world is how to give a detention with an apology. When you open preferably if you've got like the school takanon, the rule book, with why they got a detention, you open it up and you show the kid and you say, I'm so sorry, I feel so bad. But look, you see this rule here? You didn't keep it. So you got a detention today, I feel really bad for you. I wonder if there's a way we can help you avoid getting another one. Do you understand? They still get the detention, they still got to sit in it, but the message they're getting from us is we want to help you how not to get a detention again. And it's not a given anymore that just threatening them with a detention is going to work. Will suddenly change their internal world and suddenly, oh wow, now I really grew up today, thank you. That detention really matured me. By the way, just Agav, are we aware that the world of children, well let me just tell you this. There is significant university research, it's been going on for many, many years, decades in fact, that shows a correlation between age expectancy, how long we're living, and maturation being delayed. It seems there's a direct correlation between how long, as we live longer, maturation of children is delayed, they mature later. They created an index of maturation, of what you expect from a child. And it turns out that it's actually delaying significantly. I'll give you a very obvious example that I think all the ladies there will understand, is that some years ago, going to seminary in Eretz Yisrael was like finishing school. Then you come back and get married. It's like you finish yourself, you polish yourself up and then you get married. That's how it was looked at. Do you know the vast majority of girls going to seminary is their year off? It's a year off to have fun in Israel. And they don't want 13th grade. No thank you. I talked to primary teachers. When we were in primary, and I remember very distinctly going to primary, where the first day they showed us hooks and there were numbers on them and they said, you're number 3. Here's where you hang your coat and you put your boots underneath it. Your Wellington boots, remember Wellington boots? You put them underneath the hook and you put your coat on number 3 and it was done. I hear from primary teachers who tell me that till Hanukkah they got songs and pictures and colors and animals, and they're still trying to teach the kids, and not every kid chaps which one was his, and they can be still doing it till Hanukkah. That's maturation delay. It's not defiance. It's not being argumentative or difficult. It's simply a lack of maturation. Are you with me on this? Do you understand this? They clearly make index. So here's what happens. We're pushing in the whole yeshivish world to try and teach them more earlier, to maximize the absorption of information quicker. We're always trying to teach them more, whereas maturation is being delayed. In the middle between the two is this space where the kids are actually not mature enough for what it is we expect of them. And then they defy, and it's not defiance at all. They're actually just out to lunch. They don't know how to connect. They have no idea. They don't have the maturation yet, and they will have it a year or two later. So when we give them the message that you're doing something wrong with the angry face, and we try to discipline them, we might force them into it but we don't do very much for the social and emotional development, and it will come out later on in a different way. So what you get is, you have your classroom information, but we lack the connection that can really help the children. Yes, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Are you saying that what we see as a trend with the kids, I teach 7th and 8th grade boys, and I see a trend in there that they are more immature than they used to?
Oh, it's absolutely true.
So this is a
It's
real
documented
scientific,
fact.
fact.
I once spoken in Beis Yaakov of Montreal, Beis Yaakov High School of Montreal. And the ladies, they asked me, they noticed this, and they were very perturbed about it. There was a conversation in the class. They felt the kids were less mature. And I told them, you're 100% on target. There is research telling you this, and when your expectations are not attuned to the maturation level, then what appears to happen is defiance, and it's not at all. The ladies, they called me up. I was flying back to Lakewood, and they called me up and told me, Rabbi, we've got an idea of what we're calling that. They called it maturation dichotomy. They came up with the name. Maturation dichotomy means the separation between expectation, academic expectation, and actual maturation ability to do it. Because if you're not mature enough, well, then it's very hard to push yourself. What looks like lazy is not lazy if you're not mature enough to do it. It's not lazy. It's just too much for me. You need a certain maturation level to be able to work through comprehension and sitting and the hours involved to sit. This is really hard when you're not mature. So when you come along and give them, God forbid, and I say God forbid because their ruchnis is on the line, the angry face, the old school angry face, to urge them to do it, what do you think the child is feeling like inside? Seriously. They feel hated. They feel you hate them. They come home, they tell their parents, my teacher hates me. If the parents will call you and say, my kid came home and said, my teacher hates me, you'll have, I have no idea what you're talking about. The mamish have no idea what you're talking about. How? Like what? Nothing happened. I know what you mean. But guess what? Turns out the facial expression, body language, and tone of voice define how people experience us. They define how people experience us. Okay, what's that?
I just want to make sure we get to a few more questions.
Okay, let's go. Let's go forward.
Okay.
Oh, wait, you
Now, I wanna go back to the cards for a second.
Yeah.
The yellow, so, let's say a kid enters you with, chutzpah, either the yellow card or you,
Well, it's not, again, in my world of looking at things, a behavior can appear chutzpahdik, but actually could be an expression of just frustrating, hurting kid. So if you're mityaches, if you connect to it as chutzpah, you lose the kid. If you simply go beneath the chutzpah to the issue they're saying and deal with it in a very careful way, frequently the chutzpah disappears. It's the issue beneath it that I'm after.
right.
However, you have to have the backup of the red card. Until this works, you have to back up knowing that Mrs. Goldstein is going to be very happy to supply Danish and sodas to everyone and have a good chat with them with a big smile and warmth
In a standing
about
order.
what's bothering you, which is the real issue. That's the heart of the thing.
Okay, so you're gonna go back and find out what's going on with him, but let's say in the moment, you're in the middle of teaching.
That's right.
That's
So
the
the-
question, a kid raises his hand and answers something really inappropriate.
Yeah, so I would say to the kid, the question you're asking, a good one, let's talk about it later, it's very important. This is what you've said, but not right now. You know, the normal classroom stuff. That's not a reason to throw a kid out. Yes? I'm so sorry, what should we do? Go, tell me what to do.
Mrs. Goldstein, should we
can I
let it
just
fly,
tell you-
or you want to?
Everybody's
me.
good and
Okay,
engaged,
let
I'm
it
happy.
go, let it go.
I just want to tell you, this is so unfair, in a way, to just come in and do this. No, it is. This is a course. I spend 8 hours with a school, usually, when I do this. I just want to be realistic.
Rabbi Russell, we will make a commitment now that we'll bring your ministration back in. Mrs. Goldstein
No,
will
do you
work.
understand? You have
Full
questions
day.
and passions. You
We'll
have
do
to
it
have,
properly.
I told you before, what I'm going to say will evoke passions and questions, because it's a shift. But if we had the time to work, be respectful to you, and work it through, you would see at the end of the day, this is so much healthier and better to do it this way. And you maintain classroom discipline. Someone had a question over here? Yes.
Well, let's say there's 1, 2, 3 children in your class who really are not up to the maturity level of the mainstream classroom, and they're not able to keep up with the rules of sitting and doing respectfully. What do you do with such a child?
You
Every
talk to
single day
Mrs.
you use them?
Goldstein. And she'll explain it to you. No, the reality is, if what I've seen in most of our world is we need, there's a bigger resource room than needs to be with kids who are struggling because we've elevated the level beyond the average kid in the class. What we really need to do is move the focus to the exact average center of the class so that we capture most kids. The kids who go out because they just can't, they're not mature enough, is much, much less. They go out, and you can even frequently offer an advanced track by choice for someone to go out if you wish to and have a more advanced track as you're bored. The challenge I said before, that you've got too broad a range, is the reality that no one's worked out yet what to do with that, because we don't have enough money. There's not enough money in chinuch to be able to provide it. But that's really what should happen. It's a really challenging job. Yeah.
My question is, any words of advice for a child who says to that they feel like it's unfair because anyone who misbehaves, they get attention and prizes or treats or things, and they behave and don't get noticed for that? Is there any words of advice or encouragement?
The ones
for
who
that?
behave and therefore don't.
They see that the children who don't behave get extra attention and prizes and treats and.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I have long letters from young seminary students. I taught in seminary for a long time, who told me that was exactly their experience all their life, and terribly frustrating. As we talked about it, I asked them, what would you want it? And what they said to me was just be acknowledged. If someone could have just acknowledged that to me, that would have been amazing. If a teacher could have just said to me, you're amazing, you're quiet, you study, you do well, and you don't get the same attention as the kids who are struggling. And I want you to know I notice that, and I respect that. That's all they told me, because they had no solution for it. I have beautiful letters from them about this. I discussed this exact issue in seminary with the girls, and that's what they told me. Most of the, can I call it the natural learners who do well and everything else, they still hurt. They still hurt, they really hurt. And it turns out, this is the same thing with siblings, when they have a sibling in crisis. You know, this one's doing well, and that one, you know, is really in crisis. What they've told, I just sat with a whole bunch of them, girls, Motzi Shabbos, discussing with them, you know, 16, 17, 18, 19-year-olds, and we were talking about this experience. And they all said the same thing, exactly the same thing. If you just acknowledge the pain I'm carrying, I'll carry it just fine. But could you please just acknowledge it? Yeah.
One short point and one question. It feels like you put a high level of fear in us as teachers, saying that our children's Yiddishkeit is on the line with us not being angry with them. That's number one. And connected to that is, how do we stay emotionally regulated when we have, let's say, 20 kids that are all not emotionally regulated, and we have to put on a smiling, generous face after one class after one class? The bar that you're setting is so high.
Can I tell you something? I'll tell you something. Listen to this, you're going to love this, thank you. It's an excellent, obvious and excellent question. First of all, when I say the Yiddishkeit is online, you're a component of the Yiddishkeit online. You're not the only
feel like
thing.
that to us.
Okay, so just know that you're a component of the Yiddishkeit. We, all of us, are a component when we're poor people, we're working. We are a serious component where we can really help their future Yiddishkeit. That was really my doggish, was the other way around. I really wanted to say it to you the other end, that smile of yours with a kid who's struggling may keep him from. Do you understand? I wanted to say chiyuvi in a positive way. And so thank you for bringing it up. I meant it really in a positive way. That your warmth and smile and connection with a kid who's struggling, that may keep him from, and it costs nothing and it's easy. I'll tell you something fascinating. Listen to this. When I first became a therapist, so I had a case. The details of the case are kind of irrelevant, but they include someone in a power of authority behaving inappropriately with kids. And I leave it at that. And I called one of my sort of Rosh Shivas, Revelia Svei, Zechsal Bracha. I called up Revelia, who was the Shiv Philadelphia, and he was the Das Tarim, right? This, Gedol Yisrael. So I called him up, we knew each other, and I asked him how to handle this situation. And we worked it through, what to do and how I should handle this person who was being abusive, who was in a position of authority. The kids, based on the kids reporting. When we finished the conversation, before I hung up, the Shiva said to me, Rabbi Shimon, he said, you know it's also to be makabel and believe he actually did it. I said, Rabbi Shiva, we just had a half-hour conversation based on what he did of how I should handle it to stop him being connected with kids. He gave me the job to disconnect this person from being involved with kids. And now you're telling me it's also to be makabel. Like, how does that work? And he paused and he said to me, you chose the profession, work it out, and hung up. Boy, was that a learning experience for me. But I did work it out. It took me a long time, but I worked it out. Emotional regulation. You're in the toughest job. Let's be honest. You have the toughest job, the worst pay, and you are the most important people in Klal Yisrael. Do you realize that? You are the most important people in Klal Yisrael. Teachers and Rebbeim, people who teach our kids, are the most important people in Klal Yisrael. Did anyone ever tell you that? You are. That you are the future of Klal Yisrael. There's no one more important than you. You have the most impossible job, and you get the worst pay. How does that work? What happened to Klal Yisrael when we did this to you is ridiculous. Can we just start with there? That is completely absurd. There's something very wrong with, $100,000 dropped on a Pesach, vacation in Orlando, and we don't pay teachers. What is wrong with us? There's something wrong. No, I'm just telling you, it's frustrating to me. Because you're the top rung of Klal Yisrael. You're doing the most important job in all of Klal Yisrael for the worst pay. How does that work with the most stressful job? So, I just want to acknowledge that first. Yeah, you work it out. Exactly. But having said that, can I just tell you the silver lining? The silver lining is, unless you work on your emotional regulation, you can't do the job. This job is not doable unless you work tremendously, extraordinarily, unusually hard on your own emotional regulation. How to stay connected in the face of kids who are provoking you and angry and wrecking your classroom. That is one of the hard, and there's ways to work on it, there are. But working on emotional regulation is the key to success, right, for any teacher. Well, guess what? You know how that plays out with your spouse and your children in your home when you worked on how to do that? You have a dehyben life. You have a different life. I can only tell you the silver lining that when you're a teacher or a Rebbe is you have no choice if you want to be successful but to work on how to be loving and kind in the face of provocation, right? The benefit to you and your life, your marriage, your children, future daughters is off the charts. It's off the charts. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. So all I could say to you is, yes, maybe Mrs. Goldstein need more workshops on emotional regulation. I've done this in many schools where we do role plays. We actually get like the staff, someone gets to be the obnoxious kid, and then we'll do role plays on how to handle it. And the three things you focus on is facial expression, body language, no moving of your hands, and tone of voice. The tone of voice, by the way, is, if I may say, is the first one you work on. That just like there's emotional regulation. You can regulate someone else by staying calm, and the way to do it is lower your voice and slow your speech. When you speak high and fast, you sound like you came from Brooklyn and you're demanding a Danish in a store and just like, give me that, give me that. It's like, ugh. You lower your voice and you slow your voice when you say what you have to say to a child, and you can actually co-regulate. There's a lot of tires on this subject in psychology, a lot of tires on this. Look up polyvagal theory, it's all there, and it works. In fact, if you look up polyvagal, by the way, Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory, they have polyvagal approved schools, hospitals, also, I'm not kidding you. They have a system for how to teach polyvagal. Polyvagal means how you take control of your own nervous system and you do something called co-regulation. I can regulate you by the way I talk. And they have schools learning this. You can look on the website, the polyvagal theory, it's not a bad thing to learn. But you can actually learn it. The benefit to your life is off the charts, for your own personal life, and it helps regulate the classroom. It's the ability to stay, just drop the angry face. That's from the world gone by. That world's gone. Adrabah, the worse they are, the more you smile. It totally throws them off. They have no idea what to do with it. They get like disruptive and dysregulated. It's like when you're a little kid. You know, if you've got little kids, I remember my kids were little. You know, you got a 5-year-old says, I hate you, Tanya, I hate you. And you look and say, oh, that must be so hard for you. It must be so hard for you. You know, what do most parents do? Just wash their mouth out with soap, you know. It's like ridiculous. Not in this world. In this world, you look at them and you say, oh, that must be so hard for you, I'm so nice.
Rabbi Russell, I just want, one other question that Mrs. Goldstein brought up.
Sorry.
It's a slightly different direction. from
Okay,
what
good.
we had. How do you navigate challenging parents?
Oh.
They're
much worse than the kids.
Whether it is needed medication, therapy,
The parents need
homework,
medication,
support.
right?
Yeah.
Right. Oh, boy. So I want to say something fascinating. This is like, by the way, this is usually harder than the kids in the class, is handling the parents. You know, when they're like, here's the thing. Can I make an assumption? Just you're a marshal, that your parent, you have to speak to the parent. I was on a live, there was a live panel somewhere that was broadcast all over the world. And they threw this question at me, is how do we get the parents and the school on the same page? Right? Classic question, right? And I said, you don't. It's crazy. It's a ridiculous, absurd idea. There are 2 different pages. The question is, how do we get those 2 pages in the same book? That's the question. Because I tell, if you as a mechaneches, as a teacher, have to talk to a parent, and you know this tension between you and the parent, that's what we're talking about, where the parents are going to get defensive and argumentative, and they're going to blame you. They're going to blame you. So what you want to do is tell the parent that you understand that they as parents have a responsibility to fight for their kid. That's their job. And you respect that fully. And if they're angry with you, totally respect it. Totally respect it. It's fine. That's your job. Your kid needs you. And you have to fight for your kid. They look at you astonished when you say that to any parent. Yeah, you flip it. They look astonished when you say it. You have to say it with total sincerity. I understand you have a responsibility. It's your kid, and you're going to fight for your kid. It's a beautiful thing that you're here fighting for your kid. And even if you're angry with me, I'm most shalom, because I understand that's your job. You have to fight for your kid. And when you wait for the moment when they look astonished, and then you say to them, my job is to somehow fight for all the kids in my classroom. I got a whole classroom. And I can't just only focus on your child, because that's not my job. You have that job. My job is all the kids in the classroom, but I have to focus on all of them. And I've got to work out how to make this classroom function for everyone, whereas you have the job of one child. So can we have a conversation to see if we can work out how to make this work together? That's it. When you validate the parents and you tell them this 9 times out of 10, it's a game changer, complete game. But when you do it with, you know, like sincerely, it's genuine.
If it doesn't work, you also give the parents the yellow, orange, red card. Mrs. Goldstein.
Look, nothing I say could possibly work for all children, all adults, all people, at all times. Is that clear? I mean, just human nature is not like that. But my experience in life over 35 years is when people have, most people are be'etzem good. Can we start with that principle? I believe that almost everyone, without God, I once asked Moiv Rebbe, Mashkiach, Tzitzal, in Matzisyon, did you ever meet in 50 years, it was 50 years, a Mashkiach and Rebbe, I asked him, did you ever meet someone you would describe as a Baal Gaiva or a Baal Taiva? In other words, Nidder has a bailus of the mensch. Did you ever meet such a person? He thought for a while and he said, no, never. I've met people who have a mukkah with some gaiva, and they have some taiva, and they have kabbat, and they have ego, but I never met someone who is be'etzem a Baal Gaiva. You understand? The yesod of the mensch is evil, is bad. So the question is, how do we reach the good part of people? My experience? Validate them. Validate their struggles. Validate themselves. Acknowledge and validate them. Understand and hear them. And most people, you bring out the best in them. And then you say, okay, so how do we make these two jobs work together? I got a different job to you, because I got the whole class, all the kids. And you've got one job, just this kid, which you should do. And I respect that. How do we make it work together? And I understand it's very, very difficult for you to know that your child isn't doing well in this classroom setting. I get that. So what can we do to make it work together? My experience of validating human beings brings out the best and the worst in them. Yes?
So I'm gonna go back to something and then kind of tie in with this question. Are children more immature along with their parents being a little bit more immature?
Oh my gosh. So yes, the answer is yes. The answer is yes. This process has been happening for probably decades now, I think. But there was once, I want to tell you something. I have a whole drush on this, but not for now. There was once a lid on society called deference to elders. No, she does.
Because it used to be.
That lid is gone. When I went to school, I promise you this is true, there was no public school and public buses in England, so we went on a school bus. You wore school uniform. If you were seen on a school bus not giving your seat to someone older than you, then you were called out in assembly and given a detention. When a teacher walked by in the hallway when we were kids, you had to stop talking. If you didn't, you got a detention. And if the principal walked by, you had to lower your eyes. You weren't allowed eye contact with the principal. And if you did, you got a detention. When we grew up, we had chairs. You had to sit on a seat by a meal. You weren't allowed to get off. The only way you got off the chair was by chanting, "Please, Mummy, darling, may I leave the table?" And if Mummy, darling said, "No, not now," you sat. And if you moved, Daddy, not so darling, gave you one of those, and you sat. And today comes the benching by most families. They send out the truth. Where are the kids? Like one's next door, one went to sleep, one's reading a book upside down on the couch in the basement. It's like crazy. There was no such thing 50 years ago. It didn't exist. The world changed. In that world, both parents and your parents are under control by most people. Look, I'll say this the most blunt and clear way I know it to be. The world after the war, we were encouraged, all of us, to have very large families to rebuild Klal Yisrael. Do I have to finish the sentence? Thank you. Thank you. Because I can tell you that many Gedolei Yisrael are this close to saying what I just didn't say publicly. Young families are overwhelmed. They can't cope. They have this thing in their home called kids. There's like a group of things called kids. Get the kids in the bar, get the kids to bed, get the kids in the car. They don't even know what they are. They're just this thing called kids. They're actually unique human beings with unique needs. And they're so overwhelmed they can't cope with it. And then they send them to you and hope for the best. No, this is a broader issue which we're not going to resolve today. And yes, I can validate it deeply. Okay, We're done?
I will wrap up.
Oh, wow.
Final thoughts.
Look, can I just wrap up by saying I hope I didn't depress everybody? Did I? I really hope and pray I didn't depress you. I want you to know you have the best, most important job. You're the most kosher of people. And if anyone didn't tell you that they should have, you are the best we have. And we know, and everyone knows you're underpaid, and it's not fair. It's wrong. On a million levels it's wrong. But I can tell you this, that in the long run of life, what you do to keep people hopeful and from and all the rest of it, just with a smile and warmth, prioritizing always relationship, you're caring for a kid over how much they learned is always more important. Always, 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 always. Because when you, by the way, it goes back, did you hear me speak the other night, any of you? Is that the Shevis Yitzhari? It all goes back to that. That the Shevis Yitzhari, the English desires, developing a healthy human being is more important even than the installation of mitzvahs. Because if you do healthy people, they want to do mitzvahs. They come to it. But if you prioritize mitzvahs over being healthy, unfortunately, you lose both. So what you're doing is the true amazing avodas HaKodesh, and you'll do it easier and better if you prioritize the relationship over the chayma. Thank you.
Thank you.